y'all, Darla here with Growing Tropical. Well, it's a busy time of the year in the garden. There's lots and lots and lots of things to do. And let me just start right off the bat and show you guys exactly where I'm at and what I'm actually doing. We are actually in our front yard right now, and what I'm doing is I'm just kind of walking around and I'm just kind of inspecting everything. I have some trimming that I need to do in these flower beds, but this time of the year is when I usually really get out and I started inspecting a lot of my shrubs for insects. And it's really a good idea that I get out sooner as opposed to later, because I have a problem with soft shell scales, and they're just something that we deal with here living in South Florida. They're pretty easy to eradicate, and what I find that I do now is I try to get in front of it by using a preventative instead of waiting until the scales have just completely made my shrubs, and in this case the Crotons. Those soft shell scales, they just attack my Crotons like crazy. And so what I find myself doing is I just go in and I buy a systemic granular insecticide. Let me show you guys what it is that I use. I purchased this, it's a systemic granule. It's made by Bonide, and it's just, it's great for soft shelled scale amongst other things as well. But I find that it works really, really well because it is systemic. And what I mean by systemic, y'all, is a systemic fertilizer, basically, not fertilizer, insecticide. A systemic insecticide is something that when you put it on, in this case, this is a granular solid. So when I sprinkle it around the plant, what it does is when you water it in, it actually takes it up into the roots. Now, there are some things that I don't like to use the systemic granules on, especially as a preventative. If it is like, for example, I'm looking at my hibiscus that are right behind me. As a rule, I don't have a problem with the scale on those plants anyway, but I would really think twice about using them on the hibiscus, primarily because they flower, and I don't want to harm the pollinators. And I kind of think that maybe because whatever is sucking on the plant, because it's systemic and it goes up through the plant, whatever's sucking on there or eating on it, it's going to kill. And so I would think twice about doing something using a systemic on something that is flowering. However, in this particular case, I'm using this stuff on my Crotons, and like I said, what I do is I use it as a preventative because I know that several times throughout the year the scales they attack these Crotons, and I'm going to show you exactly what they do and how ugly they actually make the plant look. Let me show you, and I'm going to put my glasses on for this. I'm going to show you some of the ones that I actually trimmed off. If you can see this stem right here, I trimmed this off, and you can see hopefully just the ugly, ugly leaves that is on here. There's sooty mold all over it, and up and down the stem. I'm going to kind of strip these stems a little bit so hopefully you guys can see, but there is a scale. I'm going to do this very gross thing, and I'm going to take this with my fingers, but these little critters right here, this is pretty much what they look like. I mean, there's not a whole lot to them. They're very soft and mushy. And basically what they do, y'all, is they line the stem. And then I'm just trying to see, there were some that were all over the backs of the leaves as well. I'm not real sure if there's a better picture over here. Like this one right here. You can see all the sooty mold that's on this. But then on the back side, there are all of these little tiny scale critters. Now, some of these actually, it looks like maybe this might be some old residue that was on there from a previous treatment that I put on there. But for the most part, they're gross, and they just destroy the whole look of the entire plant. Now, in my experience, I've had them bad. I've had scale really, really bad. They've never killed my plants, but they make them look so ugly that I've had to definitely cut them back to the bare bones. Fortunately, I didn't have to do that this time with this plant right here. So what I did, like I said, this plant was probably, I'm going to say he was probably a good 4 foot tall, kind of like the one that's behind me here. He was about as tall, almost as tall, not quite as the one that's behind me over here. And it was time to cut him down because I like to be able to look from the road into the property. I like to be able to look into the landscape and see everything. And so I like to keep these plants a little bit lower. But what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be treating with what I showed you, that systemic granular insecticide. I'm going to be putting it all around the base of this. This one over here, I trimmed him back just a little bit. He wasn't quite as high, but he actually, I think it's because he was so in close proximity. I think he picked up a little bit of the scale as well. So we're going to be treating him. Now, funny, this one back here, I'm going to be trimming this guy as well. I'm going to be taking him back, but he does not have any scale on him, and neither do the two that are over on the other side, because what I did was several months ago, I'm going to say it was probably maybe, it might have been in December, November, late November and December, I came out here with that systemic granular insecticide, and there were some scales on this, and I treated this, and they are gone. They are completely gone. Now, why I didn't think to treat the other ones, I don't know. I think it was just a situation where I saw them actively on this plant, on this Croton, and I went ahead and I treated it. So anyway, that is something that I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be trimming this guy down maybe not quite as low as this one here in front, but I've got some Crossandra that are growing here in the front. Now, I've nipped and tucked at these guys. In my experience, the Crossandra, now they're perennial here in South Florida, and they're absolutely beautiful. They put on these most gorgeous orange blooms, and they're just they just draw your eye. I just absolutely love them. However, in my experience with these guys, they do not start kicking butt, for lack of a better term. I mean, really getting large and in charge and really looking good until we start getting into more of the hotter times of the month. So probably more like around starting in May and June, they're going to really start getting, I will fertilize them, and so they'll start getting really nice and dark and green, and they'll just really bloom up absolutely beautiful. But they really, really like the heat. That's one of the most beautiful flowers we grow here, or one of the beautiful flowers that we grow here in South Florida, that really, really take the heat. So let's move on to another flower bed that I'm going to show you. Now, this one over here, these are my red hot hibiscus. Now, these guys, I'm in love with these guys. As a matter of fact, this was one of the first videos that I actually did, was when I planted up these red hot hibiscus. Now, I have been nipping and tucking, and the last time I trimmed on these guys was probably about, I want to say, again, in November or December. It was probably when I came out here and I found those scale over there on those Croton. But I came out here and I started trimming, and of course, the more you trim on these hibiscus, and just all you need to do is just basically go in and just take the tips off of these guys, and they just get really, really full and bushy. And that is the way you want them to look. So they're looking really good. I've inspected them already, and I haven't really found any bugs. As a matter of fact, my hibiscus, the only one bug that I have a really, really hard time with are the Sri Lankan weevils. They're a big fat pain in the rear end here in South Florida. And y'all, that systemic I keep calling it a fertilizer, that systemic insecticide, it will not touch them. It will not touch them. I have tried to use organic stuff for the Sri Lankan weevils. The only thing that I have found that will absolutely destroy them is the tall star. And it is not organic, but it's something that, I use very carefully. I use best management practices when I'm using anything like that, but they will destroy my hibiscus. I mean, they literally will just decimate the leaves, and there will be nothing left of them. They're nasty little critters. But and what I'm going to do is I'll flash on the top of the screen what they actually look like. So if you guys see bugs like that on your plants, I'm not exactly sure where I know they're here in South Florida, but I'm not entirely sure, what states that they have actually migrated into. But if you see these little bugs, you definitely want to make sure you take care of them, because they will definitely tear your plants up. So anyway, this little area right here is pretty much all taken care of. But back here, we've got a hot mess back here. These are my just my regular hibiscus. They're not trees, but they sure look like trees because I have neglected them. I should have gotten out here months and months and months ago, and I should have trimmed them. I usually keep these guys nice and tight, but they've just kind of gotten, just crazy, you know, like I said, they're just a hot mess. So one of the things I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be going ahead and I'm going to be trimming these guys up. I'm going to take them down to keep them really nice and tight. They have, as a matter of fact, I'm not sure if you can see, they put on this gorgeous, gorgeous yellow, yellow. I don't know why I said that. Orange. It's like a peachy orange bloom. They're absolutely stunning. And so anyway, we're going to be taking them down way, way, way down to bring them in a little bit tighter. So far, I have not really seen, as a matter of fact, I'm trying to see, sometimes those little Sri Lankan weevils, what they do is when you walk up to them, they're sneaky because they'll be on, like, for example, they'll be on a leaf, and if they see you walking up, they'll go right up underneath the underside of them. And I don't see any right now. As a matter of fact, like I said, I was inspecting them earlier and I really didn't see any. So I am not going to do, I don't use the tall star as a prevention. I wait until I have an issue and then I use that type of fertilizer because it is synthetic and it's not, I would prefer to use an organic whenever possible. So anyway, you guys, that's kind of what I'm working on right now in the front yard. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and just get to trimming up all these things. I'm going to trim the Crotons up over in the other landscape area that we started in or started at, and then I'm going to work my way over here and I'm going to trim up these hibiscus, and I'm just going to let you guys follow along, and we'll come back and we'll take a look at just how much better it's all going to look. So let's get to it. Okay, y'all, we're back. This one gave me a real workout. Oh my gosh, my arms are killing me. Normally, I don't let these hibiscus go as bad as what they were. I mean, they were just out of control. I just never, I normally get over here and I don't necessarily say I nip and tuck on them, but I usually give them a good trimming a couple times a year. And last year, I do not believe that I trimmed them back at all. And they just, well, you guys saw them before I started. They were just crazy. They were all over the place. And believe it or not, as terrible as they look right now, because they look really, this is what I call taking it back to the bare bones. They look really, they almost look dead, but I assure you they are not. This has happened a handful of times over here on this side yard where I didn't get to these hibiscus, and when I cut them back, they rejuvenated themselves quite nicely. So anyway, I am so glad to have that chore completely done. So now all I have left to do is I'm going to go ahead and get these leaves all raked out. That'll be a whole nother video, you guys, because I'm going to show you what I do with the oak leaves. Now, I don't have oak leaves here or oak trees on my property, but the surrounding neighbors have oak trees, and the oak leaves, obviously with the wind and everything, they fall on the lawn. And I'm going to show you guys what I actually do with my leaves when they fall on the lawn. Instead of bagging them up and taking them to the curb, curve, I'm going to be doing something a little different. So anyway, y'all stay tuned for that video, but this video is not over just quite yet. I want to take you over and show you one more thing in the original area that we were working on. So come on over here and let's take a look so I can show you something. Okay, so come on back here. I'm going to show you something in this flower bed right here. Now, remember I had trimmed all these guys back, and I have a tea plant that's right here. Robin, you want to come show this a little bit closer? I have a tea plant that I put in here, and I am actually going to relocate him. I do not like him in this spot. What I'm going to be doing is the Croton that I have growing over in this quadrant over here, and I have more of it over here. I'm going to go ahead and purchase more of that Croton, and I'm going to go ahead and put it here. And I think it'll just kind of balance out the flower bed. When I put this guy in, it was one of those last minute decisions. He was a leftover plant, and I just kind of put him in there, and I don't like where he's at. But I do like the tea plants. I'm just going to relocate him somewhere else. But all in all, I think the flower bed looks really good. The one last thing that I have to do in this flower bed out front, and I've inspected other areas, I don't see any other scale anywhere else other than, like I said, those two over in the front have the scale. So what I'm going to be doing, y'all, is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add this this granular insecticide over here. Remember in the beginning of the video I talked about using the systemic. So what I'm going to be doing is, according to the directions, it's very clear on the back here, what they recommend that you do for in-ground plants like this is for every foot of plant you add half a cup. So these are about 2, maybe almost 2.5 foot. So I'm going to add about a cup of this to each one of these plants right here, and then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to water it in really good, and hopefully that will take care of any of the scale insects that are growing, or not growing, but that are sucking the life out of these plants and making this ugly sooty mold all over this, and all the new growth will come out and it won't have any of that damage on there. So you guys, I am out of breath. It's getting a little bit later in the evening. Today is actually the time that we are the night that we roll the clocks back. So I've got a couple of, like an extra hour of time, so which will be great. So anyway, you guys, just kind of showing you a little bit of the things that I do in the garden, trying to get in front of it and get everything all inspected, so that way it'll go through the summer months really nice. But you guys, I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, sure would appreciate a thumbs up, and if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. So you guys, until the next video, bye for now.